Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm delighted to welcome Charlotte, the accidental female developer. We're going to get into some hot topics today, all around property development, and I want to touch on a little bit of entrepreneurship towards the end. So firstly, Charlotte, welcome to my channel and thanks for joining me.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I've been following you for a while, so I am delighted to be on.
Absolute pleasure. Cool. Well, I think, you've got a great following. A lot of people that are going to watch this probably know you already, but if you don't know Charlotte yet, I'm going to include all of her links in the description below so you can go check her out, follow her and learn about what she's doing. But for those that do stick around, Charlotte, if you could just kindly give us an overview of who you are and what you do to the current stage.
My name is Charlotte Edwards. I'm on Instagram as the accidental female developer, and I am a property developer and investor.
Cool, awesome. Well, Charlotte, obviously it's in the title there, and I want to touch on this as we begin. You've got accidental female developer. So how did this journey start? Did it go straight into development when it comes to property, or did you go through more of a traditional route looking at all the buy-to-lets? Like how did this kick off for you?
Yeah, so I think most people start with a buy-to-let, don't they? Whereas I started with a field with planning permission for 25 houses and a seven-figure debt. So I to put a bit of like color into that, just to fill in the gaps. My dad and my brother both passed away very suddenly. They ran a property development business, Dennis Edwards Homes, and my dad had been doing that for 30 years. I'd not had any involvement in it. I was doing freelance marketing and PR, so I was in a very different world. And they both passed away very suddenly, both with cancer, within a few months of each other. Sorry, it's a bit difficult to I'm used to talking about it, but it still sometimes like resonates a little bit. And basically the business had bought this field with a bank loan, planning permission for 25 units, and it was post-Brexit, pre-COVID. It was the end of 2019, and I had to learn how to build houses. So that's kind of how I got into property and development. It wasn't by choice. I was thrown into it, and thrown into it in like the worst possible way, with probably one of the hardest projects to try and get my head around.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I think what's really important, I think, to sort of touch on it is, obviously you shared your story. So I think do you find that you had a very big, almost skipping a step here towards the end, but do you find that you had a very big reason why that you needed to make it work? Because going straight into property development with limited sort of hands-on experience can be quite hard, and there is a lot of learning, and there, big mistakes can obviously result in things going very wrong. But do you think, obviously from your brother and your father, do you think that was a very big reason why you needed to make it a success and you wouldn't settle for anything less?
Well, there were two big reasons. That was one of them, and the other one was there was a big bank loan to repay. So I was yes, it was for their, like, a legacy for them as well, but also from a practical and financial side, that site needed to be turned over to make good on that loan. So yeah, there was two sides to it.
Cool. Well, now you are obviously, you've thrown yourself into property development. It's not the easiest of tasks to take on. How have you found it in terms of risk versus reward? Because, everyone talks about the glitz and the glamour and the gross profit and everything like that, but very few talk about the sleepless nights, what's gone wrong, workmen not turning up, just everything. How have you found dealing with the actual reality of what property development brings?
Well, let me tell you about my first year in property development. Sleepless nights, weekly phone calls with the bank, driving around in a Peugeot Bipper van, not paying myself anything, and a lot of worry. So that was year one. Yeah. And then so it was a 2-year project. So halfway through the project, then you start to break even, and then you can start to pay yourself a little bit. Get a car instead of a van. So that's glitz and glamour. Haven't seen any of that.
So there we go. So that's the truth. That is the truth.
That is the truth. And I think like there's not a lot of people that you see a lot of property developers driving around in their Range Rover, but you don't necessarily see what they did before they got into their Range Rover, and that was driving around in a van, helping unloading, lorry loads of deliveries, and cleaning the houses out because the cleaners haven't turned up. And that's the reality of property development.
Yeah,
which I'm putting out there.
And putting out unexpected fires and stuff like that.
Putting out unexpected fires, like we had a little visit from the fire brigade this morning. Yeah, so there's just always something going on, and you can never quite plan for what's going to happen from one day to the next.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we, this is why I kind of started this journey of going down a podcast route and bringing people on, and because there is a lot of fluff and it looks very nice from the outside, and I really do feel that many people jump into things thinking that it's all it's all nice, it's that there is a really luxurious side to it, and there's not a lot of hardship, when actually when we talk to people like yourself and other people, they can turn around and go, actually, do you know what, for the first few years it's going to be really tough, and you'll soon figure out whether you like it or not and whether you're going to stick around. So it's important that we do cover this off. We mentioned obviously sleepless nights there. My God, I've had some sleepless nights when it comes to dealing with people's money and making sure that it goes right, and it has gone wrong before for me. So mindset wise, obviously that's a big part of it. How have you had to how have you learned to switch off, to deal with the stresses? Is that something you organically just learn, or is that in you anyway?
No, I've had to have a complete mindset shift. And, going back a few years ago, I think about like this mindset mumbo jumbo, like it just wasn't for me, until you actually need it, and you need that mindset shift, because my God, I needed it to change from like having a regular income every month and, having a few nice clients that I worked for, to having massive debt and being able to, I suppose, strategize your life and plan for the future. Like I just lived for the day, I'd spend my money on handbags and clothes and nice holidays, and I didn't really have much left over at the end of the month and things. And all of a sudden, like everything has to change, how you think about money, debt, like what car you drive, like what you're going to wear to work. Like I've gone from wearing lovely office clothes to like steel toe cap boots, high vis, and a hat every day. Just, you have to completely change the way that you view things. Like I found a way now to make it my own, and I've carved like a niche. I've carved a role that I like doing, where I can be myself, but also take into account all those other aspects of running a development business, where you need like that appetite for risk and financial burden and things. So yeah, there's a lot to take on. And like I was having I was having like weekly therapy sessions, like to try and change my mindset, which worked really well actually, because it removes all the blocks that things that might make you unconfident, things that happened in your childhood and things like that, and it removes all those. And once you've got a clear mind and you believe in yourself and you've got focus, I do believe that you can do anything pretty much. If you put your mind to it and you put the work in, you believe in yourself, then you can do it. You
learn along the way, don't you? Like, it's that old sort of thought process of, if you knew the journey ahead, and how long it was going to take and how hard, you probably never would begin. That's why, your skin thickens over time and you learn to deal with these things. I watched a story that you put up the other day about some of the workmen knocking on the door and asking for the boss, which is kind of what I want to touch on, because this is really important. I run 3 groups. There's a lot of women in there, and a lot of women that would love to get into property development, but the fact of the matter is, it is male dominated. It's a very rough and tumble game. What would your advice and top tips be to some of the watchers who are female and they're thinking, I'd love to do property development, it's just that 1, I don't really know where to begin, and 2, it's quite daunting?
Yeah, I think I've kind of got three sort of bits of advice really, and one is to find somebody that's doing what you're doing and like make friends with them, watch what they're doing, speak to them, learn from them, educate yourself. So the second bit is be prepared to make sacrifices. So, you know, property development, you've almost sort of asset rich, cash poor. You know, as soon as you've sold one project, that money's going into the ground for the next one. So be prepared to for the psychological aspect of having like a rush of cash flow and then nothing. So you've got to be able to kind of manage that psychologically and also in your spending habits. And then the third one is mindset. Like get yourself, make sure that you're in the best mindset possible, whether you achieve that from like doing yoga or meditation or therapy or reading. I think they're the three key things to succeed in property development.
Yeah, there's some top tips, and I hope, you know, if there are any female watchers, you know, Charlotte, I hope you don't mind me saying, you know, you're someone that could be looked up to reach out to learn from, and there are other female property developers. It's I think certainly from conversations that I've had, it's almost that knowing where to go and who to talk to. But, you know, if you can find the likes of people like Charlotte and attach yourself to those people that are perhaps 3, 4, 5 steps ahead, then it makes it that much easier. So, no, that's awesome. Obviously, with property development and even property comes finance. So, first question is, what's your thoughts and beliefs around getting into property development with no money and you can fund things 100%? I personally think it's a load of absolute cobblers. What's your thoughts?
Listen, if that was the case, everybody would be doing it, but it's not. So yeah, I would never recommend anyone to get into it with no money and no money down and all these kinds of things that you see advertised. Like, I believe that they're just to sell courses. So yeah, definitely not. You need money behind you. As I've said, if you're in property, you're asset rich and cash poor most of the time. So you've got to have money behind you just to be able to run a business in property. So yeah, no, I'm not having that at all.
When I hear no money down, I think of a bald guy with a stripy t-shirt. That's who I think. There's a certain guy.
Built his property portfolio back in the 80s and 90s, and now he's trying to sell tickets for his course.
Yeah, and that's why I do these calls, because that is the reality of it. Is, you know, you almost how many conversations have I had? Blimey, I'm sure you've had them as well, where people are under the illusion that they can get into these big projects with no track record, no money down, no assets to leverage, stuff like this. You know. Yeah, I think when you break...
I see people that are, you know, and I know people that do well out of rent to rent. So that, you know, that is a less money down option, but you still need money to get started. So yeah, I don't believe that you can do it with no money at all.
Yeah, just quickly, I mean, we won't go off on the old rent to rent topic, but I would confidently say, if anyone's starting rent to rent anyway, you need 10 grand minimum. I honestly believe that. 10 grand minimum to launch it as a business. So money is absolutely pivotal to, you know, your property development or property journey. So you heard it there first. So working with investors, what's that been like for you, and what have you learned along the way?
Well, my main investor has been the bank, really, because what I inherited was a bank loan. So I haven't had private investment. I've not worked with private investors. And I kind of prefer it that way. Like, I like borrowing from institutions rather than individuals. I feel like if I owed a person money, an individual person, I feel like the pressure was much higher with that. I kind of like the fact that it's a faceless institution. Like, it's easier to ask, and it's easier to sleep at night.
And what kind of loan to values would you work on a site? So what kind of would a traditional figure look like for you? You know, if you are borrowing from a bank, an institution, what does that kind of look like set up from? And the reason I'm asking is because it gives a good picture to those listening, is that what kind of equity are you putting in a percentage, and then what kind of loan to value are you borrowing?
I'd say it's probably about 50-50. So let's say you borrow the money to buy the site itself, but then you'd put the same in for the build costs. So that's how in my experience how I've tended to do it. I'm sure you could probably do it, you know, with a higher loan to value than that, but that's just my experience of it. As I get more projects and do more projects, I'll probably experiment a little bit more with that, but at the moment that's my only experience of it.
So how many units, and what was the first project that you done? So this, you know, because it sounds like you were thrown in the deep end, whereas most people wouldn't start like that. They would start with, you know, a small refurb, then maybe 1, 2, 3 units. How did you start, and, you know, how did you actually manage that?
Well, yeah, I've done it in reverse, because I started with a development for 25 houses, and then I've built up a buy-to-let portfolio like at the same time as that or after that. So yeah, 25 units. I managed to get planning permission for an additional unit on that site, so 26. And I'm just finishing off the last 2 now. Yeah, it was, I mean, I literally learned it from the ground up. It was just a muddy field. And I just got stuck in and learned how to do it. I couldn't get on any courses because I had no experience of property development, so I wouldn't get accepted on anywhere that would teach me how to do it. So I just I watched YouTube, I listened to Spotify, I read books, and I asked loads of questions, and that's how I learned how to be a property developer.
Yeah, and while probably saving a nice pretty penny or two, because that's something that you pretty much just said. You know, sounds like very much what I do is self-education. You know, you've gone out and used resources that are out there that are free, and, you know, for those that are watching, everyone can do that. It's almost like there are too many resources that you can't make excuses. You know, if you want to learn something, it is out there. So for those watching that are wondering whether they need to pay for a mentor, my personal view is you can pretty much learn everything. I think property development's a hard one because it's so complex. Obviously it was within your family business before, but for those starting, I think it is a tricky one. Do you think, I certainly believe this, that you could attach yourself and learn from someone that wouldn't charge you, because there are really nice people out there who would literally let you go on site a few days a week for free. But do you think people as a default think they have to pay for a mentor to learn it?
I mean, I suppose if you've got the money to pay, it's quite a quick fix, isn't it? Of, well, I'll just do a 3-day course or whatever and do that. But I mean, the thing is, when I was doing it as well, it was the start of COVID, so everything was locked down. There wasn't the option to go and meet with people or go on a course or anything. So I was literally stuck just trying to learn stuff online and from people that I did meet, but you couldn't even get within 2 meters of them anyway. So I was like trying to talk to people from a distance and do it that way. I don't, you know, because I've not got any experience of doing courses, I can't. I'm sure there are good courses out there. I'm sure there are. There must be, but there's probably bad ones as well. And you know, if you've only got, I don't know, a few grand to spend on a course, you don't want to spend it on the wrong one, do you? So I think getting that free information from podcasts like, you know, like yours and shows like yours, that's the way to start. Get as much as you can from that and then work up from there.
Yeah, I think it is a really hard one because there is so much out there. I think it's just a minefield, and I think, you know, when you can find someone that you relate to and you take to, and you can learn from, I think stick with that person. I think it's when people, you know, flitter from one person to the other. We've had this before, is that, you know, a lot of people say contradicting things. So yeah, I think the hard thing is when you flitter from one mentor, one educator, you know, you do end up hearing conflicting things. So I think, you know, someone gets sort of almost stuck in a rut thinking, what is the right way to do it? What is the right strategy? So definitely, you know, learn as much as you can from free resources first, and then try and find someone you can really relate to and that almost is doing very similar to what you want to do. So I just want to touch on the entrepreneurial spark within you, because to take on obviously such a huge task of property development, you need to be someone that's very driven. Like you say, there's sleepless nights, you have to get up, you have to motivate yourself. As an entrepreneur, it can be quite lonely, as you know. Is that something that's always been with you? Has it come out more over years, or, you know, is this just out of the blue, you've had to take it on?
I think it's been forced out of me. Like, I would never have like called myself an entrepreneur until recently. But I think, again, once I've got over that mindset trap of like, I'm just meant to work 9 to 5 and collect my money and spend it every month. Like, once I got into the right, this is what the situation I've landed in. I'm working my way out of it. I've started getting other entrepreneurial ideas. So I set myself a target of getting 10 buy-to-let properties in 10 months, just in my own, like in a separate company, set that up, achieved that, and thought, wow, so I can build houses, I can set up a buy-to-let portfolio. What else could I do? So now I'm thinking of like the next idea. So it's quite addictive once you get into it.
It almost makes you think of different avenues, different ventures, doesn't it? Because I think you realise that I almost feel like when you focus on something, you get it done, you see opportunity for something else. And then,
absolutely,
like you say, once you are in the right mindset and you're around, I think a big part of it is, and which I suppose ties on to another question, is when you're around the right people that are also really inspiring, really motivated and determined to do more, you also come away thinking, right, I'm going to do more. You know, so your circle of 5, 10, 15, whatever it might be, is such a huge part of you being like the peak performance entrepreneur, right?
Absolutely. And like, I never really believed in like the power of networking or anything like that. I was just, you know, it used to make me cringe going to these networking events and standing up and introducing yourself. And I just thought, I'm not going to get anything out of this. But wow, have I got something out of this now? Because not only have I made really good friends, they're like-minded friends who are doing the same things as me, got the same goals as me. We share ideas, we troubleshoot. And, you know, that was another reason for joining Instagram, because it can be a really lonely world in business and definitely in property. So it's great to connect, because, you know, your friends that you've got already aren't necessarily doing the same things as you, and mine aren't anyway. So I don't always feel like I can speak to them about, or they'll understand what's going on, because they've all got their own different areas of business or their own, you know, careers. So they don't always necessarily understand what's going on in property. And it's nice to have that network of other property people who you can just ring up and go, oh, you'll never guess what's happened to me today. The fire brigade have just turned up. Yeah, you know, it's nice to have that network.
Yeah, it is. And it almost is that, it's that almost bit of fire in your belly to keep you going, because like you say, I think many people underestimate at times it can be quite lonely. Like, I think we all sit there on days after weeks of working, months of working, you know, not sleeping a lot, you do end up questioning whether it's all worth it. And you do think, oh, bugger this, like this is just, so you do go through those moments.
Yeah, definitely. At least once a week.
Yeah, absolutely. And we all go through that. And, you know, I suppose the other thing is as well, when people mention the word entrepreneur, business owner, and then success and financial freedom, you know, those are really individual words to everyone. You know, your financial freedom is very different to mine. And I think it's not until you start attacking your own career, your own journey, that you really realise the goals that you want. So, you know, what kind of top tips would you have for those watching that they know they want to do more? So they're watching this thinking, okay, I don't know whether it is buy-to-lets, whether it's property, or whether it's just a business, but where do they start? Like, if you've got that gut feeling, where do you actually channel that?
Just start, because the more you think about it, the less likely you are to ever take the risk to start something. So just start it. You know, that day, do something, set up your website, or, you know, register your domain name, and then make steps every day to progress it. So, you know, whatever you need to do, make the connections that you need to make, set up your Instagram channel, or, you know, whatever you need to do, just keep progressing it and keep nudging it forward every day. Because the more you sit and think about, like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll just make a plan of what I'm going to do. No, just do it, because otherwise you won't. There's never a good time. There's never a good time to make a change in your life. And it's never a good time to start a business. Like, it was the worst time ever that I could have gone into business, you know, post-Brexit, pre-COVID, absolute nightmare. And I never would have done that by choice. However, you can still make it work. And that's a big learning point for me.
Yeah, amazing points. I mean, there is so much. I don't know how you look at social media. I don't actually like to use the word social media, because I think when you talk about social media and Instagram, you think vanity, oh, look at me, you know, filters. Whereas I like to think of it as, you know, it's your business page. It's who are you and what value are you offering, and stuff like that. So just to finalise, as we come to sort of wrap it up, how best to use social media? You know, what's kind of your approach? Why are you using social media?
When I first started on social media, well, I just use Instagram, to be honest, don't use any of the others. So, and I was very passive on it, and I was there just to learn from other people. So I wanted to look for other property people, watch what they were doing, learn from them. So I was taking a lot and giving nothing. And as I got more confident in what I was doing and that mindset shifted, I started sharing a little bit of what I was doing, and people were taking an interest. And then I was getting even more from it. The more I shared, the more I was getting back off it. And it's just snowballed from there, really. And I find the more I share, the more value I get from it myself, because the more connections I make, the more, networking opportunities that I get. So, yeah, I say give more to get more, basically, with social media. If you're passive, you're only going to get the bare minimum.
Yeah, be a creator more than a consumer, right? That's
yeah. I mean, I've got nothing to sell on social media, right? I'm not selling anything. I'm just sharing my journey. But in sharing that, I would like to encourage other women to be in property or in construction. I guess that's my sort of underlying why I'm doing it, because I just would have liked that same guidance when I started out.
Yeah, well, you're certainly doing that, and obviously, you know, interviews like this where we can pump it out, and certainly within my communities and hopefully within yours, you know, there'll be other females that can watch this and think, oh, actually, I'm gonna make a move now. I'm gonna do something. So, Charlotte, as we wrap it up, where can people reach out to you? Obviously, all your links will be below anyway, but is there somewhere best to get hold of you?
There is just one link. I'm a very busy person, so I'm only on Instagram at accidental female developer.
Awesome. Cool. Well, Charlotte, it's been a pleasure to have you on my channel. And for those that have watched up until now, thank you very much. And we will see you all very soon.